All right, everyone, welcome. Monday, September 10, 2018, the Human Rights Commission is come to order. So first off, our mission statement. Who would like to share? Commissioner Morgan, please
I
do.
practiced last night because I don't think I've ever read this before, so I thought I'd do my duty. The mission of the Palm Springs Human Rights Commission is to promote and protect the diversity of our community and to improve human relations through education and community awareness.
Beautiful. And roll call?
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Public comments section of the meeting will start now. Any person who wishes to speak on a topic within the city's jurisdiction during this portion of the agenda must file a speaker card with a staff liaison before this portion of the agenda is called. Although the Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take action on any items not listed on the posted agenda. Commissioners will not enter into discussion with speakers, but during Commission comments may refer the matter to staff for report and recommendation at a future Commission meeting. And we do have two guest speakers today. And the first up is Robert Heinball, please. I think you were the first one in.
No, I was actually the second.
Oh, you were number two? All right.
That's okay.
Well, Paul, you're going to be second then.
Good afternoon. I'm Robert Heinbaugh. I'm a resident of Palm Springs, and I'm here to speak to you about, again, about tobacco issues. And I'm going to refer back to the mission statement, which Commissioner Morgan just read, and it's about enhancing the quality of life for current and future generations. Almost on a weekly, if not daily basis, there's reports coming out from the CDC in Washington about changes in the laws and about health that takes place, issues relating to health that take place for our citizens. And the most recent one that just came out was that HUD, Housing and Urban Development Law, is now fully in pact, that there is no smoking in Section 8 housing anywhere in the United States. That's in the residence, on the properties. It's now verboten, if I can use that word. Okay. As a result of that, I think I'm going back several months where we have been coming to you and speaking to you about a number of tobacco-related issues. And I remember it's probably last June, if I'm not mistaken, Commissioner Morgan said, these guys have been coming here time and time again, and it's about time we did something. And once again, I see nothing on the agenda, and I'm not chastising you because you've got a lot of work to do, but I really would like you to at least appoint some sort of a subcommittee, if you will, or a work group, so that we could address these issues related to tobacco. And I thank you for the time and the attention that you've given us so far. And let's try to move this ball a little bit farther down the road, if you will. Thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up once again.
Excellent. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, Paul Henriksen, next up.
Good afternoon, Commission. I'm Paul Henriksen, a Palm Springs resident. Related to the topic Bob was just talking about, so we have two ordinances that we're trying to bring forward related to smoking here in Palm Springs. One is the county ordinance. That one is the one that's probably the most urgent because it's soon hopefully going to end up on the City Council's agenda. Councilman Coors asked for it for September. It looks like there might be a delay, so it won't be September, but looking forward to obtaining a resolution of support from this commission in favor of the county ordinance. That's the tobacco retail permit that is the enforcement arm through the county to prevent sales, illegal sales to underage people of tobacco products. And then to kind of underscore what Bob had just said about setting up a special committee related to smoking issues. After we get the TRP, as it's called, the tobacco retail permit, going forward, it'll be the city ordinance, which will cover many different other topics because we need to update that. Our city is about a quarter century behind most cities in the state on that. And it's about lives, health, and wellness and saving them. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, sir. All right, that's it, no more speakers. Next up, we've got the approval of the minutes from January 8, 2018. I'll entertain a motion from somebody.
Well, I'll move it because, but I do have well, I'll move it and then wait for a second because I have some discussion, so.
A second on the motion that's on the floor? Anybody? Okay, discussion on the minutes.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned wanting discussion, I don't have a problem with the minutes per se, but I do have a problem that January 8th, there's no way I feel I can legitimately reflect on the content and feel as if I've given it thorough review, just given that kind of time lapse. So one side of me is saying to recuse, but I don't want to hamstring a process. And so I'll just kind of leave those comments there, but I'd be interested in other viewpoints on how people are dealing with this, because, I mean, again, I don't think I could detect a problem in those minutes at this point, even if there were. Not that I suspect that there is. I don't have flares of alarm going off here, but it's just, it's too long for me to feel comfortable voting for it, to be honest.
Okay. Any other discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes as they've been presented?
Aye.
I second.
2.
I would probably abstain if I can. I wasn't on the commission at that time.
So what do we do if minutes fail to be approved? The motion won't carry.
What?
Motion doesn't carry.
Yeah.
Well, I would think you have a sufficient number of commissioners that was serving at the time that you could get a simple majority of approving of those minutes. The minutes were from the tape extraction of the recorded meeting and reviewed by 3 staff members. So I think, I mean, there were no large business items that were brought forward, and it was more administrative items that were handled.
Yeah.
So I think you have a sufficient number of prior commissioners that were in attendance that could give a simple majority of approving the minutes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's call for, again, those in favor of approving the minutes as presented by staff for January 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And your comments are noted,
Yeah,
Jim, on the...
and so note me
the-
down as a recusal then. Yeah.
And I think we're catching up, obviously,
I
since
understand,
Annie
yeah.
was out. So we're catching up with those, and I assume we're going to be timely as we go forward. Yeah, okay. Item 6, Commissioner, staff, and student comments. Commissioner Andrade, would you like to lead us off?
I actually had a question about Thank you. I had a question about in the minutes, I think there was and again, I wasn't on the commission at the time of that meeting, but I believe it was you, Chair DeHart, that said that external committees needed to be careful that in their reports that they kept to issues of human rights. And so I kind of had a question about that with respect to the committee that I chose to be on last time, which is going to be the Desert Highlands. And I'm hoping that at some point in time there'll be like some kind of clarification so that we can understand what kind of, I know the issues that they bring up during those meetings, but they're obviously not all of, relative to us and what we do.
Sure, I'll get that when it comes around to me, okay?
No comment.
I have a few words to say.
Yeah.
First of all, Annie, welcome back. I know she's not here, but maybe she'll be watching the tape. Congratulations. We're happy to have you. Ron, last time you brought us the rules of procedures.
Yeah.
I thought that information was amazing, really. I mean, instead of us reinventing the wheel, the information in that document's pretty cool. You know, there's a lot on here that I think we can follow as a guideline, especially, you know, to be a liaison. I mean, if everyone looks at like all these different groups and organizations, I mean, I'm already a member of the Desert Business Association, Temple Isaiah. I mean, there's a lot of different groups that we probably already belong to, so I would like to make that an effort that we all try to reach out. We don't have to report, or maybe there's something that's happening, but we can start networking with these groups. I would like to actually start trying to liaison with the Native American and the Hispanic and Latino communities. I feel, in my opinion, that they're a little bit underrepresented in city government. And so I would welcome everybody to like look at the list, great ideas, and see if there's some groups and organizations that you kind of want to contact and just put it out there. I know Jilska, she's done for years for the Highland Community Center. Everyone knows her. I think as Jilska starts to phase out her career here at the Human Rights Commission, we have 2 new commissioners, and I'm sure they're going to represent us well. But I'm sure that you'll probably introduce them and go through the process, and then now they know that they can speak to you. But I really love part of this that really kind of got me thinking is we should be doing more outreach. Not just the table talk stuff, but in some other community meetings, whether it's 1PS, which is well represented, but other groups and organizations through Palm Springs.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sandusino.
Master calendar. Well, we got it. Everyone has a copy of it. Thank you.
Of what?
Master
The master
calendar.
Oh, the master calendar, yes.
Yeah. Ron, should I make my request about the?
No, when you get your committee, when you get to committee report.
Okay.
This is just for a general
Okay,
update.
so our first event is going to be the Pride Parade, November 1st, and then we have, October 23rd is the Senior Expo, which is actually we were planning to have it before, but now I think October is a good month for it. Then the Pride Parade, November 4th, Veterans Day Parade, November 11th, Community Service Awards, February 11th, Black History Month Parade, February 23rd, 1PS, March 23rd, Harvey Milk Diversity Breakfast, May 17th. So we have a busy calendar here.
Season is upon us.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner Gross.
No comments this time. I'll have some announcements later when we get the announcements on the agenda.
Okay.
Sure, thank you, sir. I just wanted to share with the commission a letter or an issue that came to my attention over the last week, which prompted me to send a letter to the city attorney today asking some questions. We have a resident here in the city of Palm Springs who feels that he is regularly facing some discrimination from local businesses, and he's having a hard time getting some businesses to offer some alternative communication methods. So, for example, walking into a bar or a restaurant and asking the business owner or manager to turn on the captions on the televisions, or getting in sign language interpretation at a theater or somewhere where there's a live performance. So this raises some potential concerns with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and so I've sent a letter to the city attorney to ask some questions of what local businesses are expected to comply with here as far as the ADA is concerned, and try to discover if there is any sort of protocol or mechanism in place for residents here in Palm Springs to raise concerns to city government or anything like that. So just scratching the surface with this, but if you want to learn any more about what this gentleman has told me, feel free to pull me aside and ask me. I'd be happy to share. And based on what the city might answer back to me, I might be bringing the subject back up with the commission to ask us to take some sort of action. So that's all.
Excellent.
Thanks.
No, Bud,
That was easy, huh? All right, thank you. And a couple on my side, in response to the question on bringing HR or human rights-related comments or reports back to the full commission. That was in respect to addressing, when we go out to these events and organizations, we don't necessarily need to come back to the Human Rights Commission and report on events and activities that are happening within the community. But we want to share anything that may be related to a human rights issue that we learn when we're out at those meetings. So, we don't need to review an event calendar of every event that's happening at the Well in the Desert or whatever it might be. But when there's something that's specific that catches your ear that is a human rights related issue, that's definitely something that would come in front of the commission, and we would want you to share that, okay? Thank you. Let's end, on the tobacco feedback we got today. I appreciate both of the comments that we had. And I actually asked Dale, I thought we had a volunteer who was going to take on tobacco at one of our previous meetings, and neither Dale or I have it in our notes. So did we have somebody who raised their hand who was going to get involved with tobacco? Okay. All right, well, that's something we'll come back to, but I thought we did, but we didn't have it in the notes. And then the other thing on the rules and guidelines, thank you, Commissioner Morgan, on the feedback on that. The thought certainly is that we can use that as a guideline. It's from a writing and a written standpoint, it's dated clearly, but the thought was, and that's why we distributed it to everyone, was to get feedback on those standing committees that existed and how can we update them to 2018/19 so it's applicable to today's time. And we got the feedback we do have really is following that same guideline of what has been laid out before us. It's just redefining some of the organizations that are there. And those organizations that are listed really was just used as a map to guide us on keep our broad perspective when it comes to women's issues, that, hey, there's 20 different organizations that may be involved in issues that women are focused on, women specifically, or Latino issues, or African American issues. So that's why there was a broad suggestion of ideas, and certainly not that we would want to think that we could physically cover every single one of those. It's just to broaden our perspective so we know. So we welcome additional folks who haven't been able to respond to the request to review that document and redefine just give an updated definition so we can come back in October, I think, and then look at how we use that structure going forward. Okay, and thanks to the people who did submit the comments already. I appreciate it, and thank you for spending that time to do that. Last comment for me is the Transgender Community Coalition is asking if we would like to have a space, or they've sent us an invitation, if we would like to have a table at the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which takes place in November late. And I don't have the date in front of me, but we would need a volunteer to staff that, and I'll look for the date so we have it later on in the meeting. But that's the updates that I have on reports. Dale.
For clarification, as the chair has alluded, that you did place for this meeting agenda item related to the tobacco retail permitting, and having that initiated, it led me to search out if there was any movement in terms of bringing it forth to council. As the speakers have said earlier, the intent was sometime in September. Our first council meeting was this past Wednesday, and it did not make that agenda. And we were looking if there were agendized for future meetings. That has not yet surfaced, so staff has initiated inquiries to see where it is. The sustainability Commission is also going to be considering bringing forward a supportive resolution, so we would do something similar. So that will be coming forward to you. In clarification to the concern about ADA compliance, all city programs is monitored through a city ADA coordinator. Private may lead to them to take advantage of the mediation services that the Human Rights Commission provides, and that would have to be mutually agreed by all parties. I would suggest that if you have inquiries, that at least you filter them through me initially, that I can be able to give some guidance as to the direction. As you can understand, with umpteen commissions and boards, individual commission members and board members initiating contact with other city staff can be cumbersome and not know what the priorities, and if there is a role that our commission should play in that. So it's just more of a funneling. I will certainly speak with you afterwards of some of the private things that could be available to the individual. There are other services that provide mediation, and there may be a pattern of these businesses that have been brought to the attention of those other agencies. So I'd be happy to follow up with you.
Excellent, Jay. Okay.
It's on Tuesday, November 20th for the Trans Remembrance
Oh,
Day.
beautiful. Thank you for looking that up. 11:20.
Could I ask a question just for clarification on the tobacco issue? The gentleman that spoke, the speaker earlier, said that HUD has made a rule that there's no smoking allowed in Section 8 properties. Jay and Dale, do you think that was accurate? Wouldn't it be, I mean, those are privately owned properties, right? So wouldn't it be public housing and properties that are owned? Or is it subsidized properties as well?
I would think that certainly the public housing units would be covered under that. As in terms of the housing choice vouchers in Section 8, I don't know if they can require a private owner to do it, and particularly if it's a single-family home. Most of the Section 8 are already in developments that may have other federal assistance.
Correct.
And would trigger that requirement. So it may not be a blanketed requirement, but it is the direction is going, as well as not just tobacco, but also medical marijuana.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Dale, for those updates. It's all really useful information as we're learning our way through the system. So thank you, appreciate it. Okay, next up, items for discussion or vote. Item A, master calendar. And Commissioner Sandrasina, you've touched on that a little bit. Are there other items you'd like to add on the master calendar? You shared a comment with me a little earlier that you probably want to share with the commission.
Yes, as this is my last year on the Human Rights Commission, I have served the commission for the last 5 years, and this year is going to be my 6th year. I like to pass on the responsibility of the parades to somebody, to one of the commissioners, to do the paperwork for the events.
I can do that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
And I can help. I'm glad to help.
Okay, wonderful. So probably I'll redirect that email to them, or would you send it back to?
Yeah, just bring them up to speed. So we'll just, now we'll appoint the two of you to be on heading up the master calendar activity. So if you just share with them what you've done in the past,
Okay.
then we're good to go.
Okay.
On the topic of parades, it's my understanding that our banner is missing. Is that correct, or have we found it?
Yes, our banner is missing. We don't have a
So-
banner.
It's going to be very difficult to be in a parade without a banner.
Oh.
And I don't know if we have funds to get one.
Yeah. So have we confirmed that the banner is definitely dead?
Yes.
It's not in your garage, it's not.
No, I
anybody
cleaned
else in
out my
this
garage,
And
yes.
Dale, you don't know, you don't have any idea where it's at.
I have not looked at storage. I don't recall that it was returned.
I have the marketing container, but there's never been a banner in there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't fit there.
I will confirm that.
Okay. All right, so if the banner is AOL, then AWOL, then we either have to decide, and when we get to finance, you can, and marketing, let us know if we've got any funding, but we'll have to get one ordered, and if we don't have one, then we just don't have one.
Well,
Or maybe we can
perhaps
borrow
we
another
could-
one from another just generic city
yeah.
banner.
So we have a table cover that we've used before. It's like a bright gold, but it does have the human rights symbol on it, as I remember. Remember, Jim, we
Yeah,
used that at
right.
the table talk? So as an alternative, if we can't get another one, we could maybe makeshift that. At least
Yeah.
it says Human Rights Commission on it.
Yeah, it could be a
Yeah.
make good, for sure.
Mhm.
But Dale will check and see, and then if you can let, who's gonna, marketing, if you can let Commissioner Randolph know what you find, and then Nikki, if you can just, if we either get a new one or we'll use your idea, which is a good solution too, okay?
Okay.
Okay, anything else on parades and the calendar itself? Not necessarily parades, but the calendar itself.
We have a handout from Tamika regarding, I think everyone has it in their package. She says, thanks for sharing. There's a speaker who she would like to include in one of our meetings, to take part in one of our meetings. So if you could read this and see whether this fits our theme.
It's at your place settings. It's a flyer that was distributed, yes.
Oh, is that one? Okay.
Yeah.
On the parades, I think last year we added the Dyke March. I don't see it.
What's on there? Right here.
Is it?
It,
Dyke Rally.
let me,
Is that the same?
Is this an old one that I have in front of me?
there was one that was provided to you as an update today, and it was eliminated. If you recall, last year, the commission itself could not formally participate. It was a women's-only event.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how that was going to be brought forward this year. So in the updated version that was given to you today, it is not included.
Okay.
It had previously been included until we got clarification.
Okay. Well, as long as I'm here, I'll go.
Okay.
If you all want me to.
Okay, and then you have to talk about the marketing.
And they have changed the
Marketing.
language this year, so it's not
And
an
marketing
exclusive gathering. It is an all-inclusive with a general awareness that it is an event geared for a gathering of women, but men are invited to participate as allies in the community. So we should probably get it added back in, yeah? Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, so our new chairs for the calendar, you have your point person for the Dyke March, Commissioner Randolph, is taking that on. And Commissioner Sandracina, you'll let them know if there's what they've got, what has to be
Yes.
done for
Yes.
both the Black History, Veterans, Pride, all coming up rather quickly, okay? Okay, beautiful. And on I wasn't sure what your note was on the Tamika.
I think they want to be present at one of our meetings so that they can speak on the subject, which is important.
So maybe we can put it onto, when we get to the agenda for the next meeting, if this
Okay.
is just add it to the agenda for the next meeting, and then,
My understanding, she was asking that we would disseminate and let the community be aware, especially the Desert Highland community. And having spoke with you earlier, you'll be attending their association meeting tomorrow. Maybe you can bring that forward. If you'd like additional flyers, I can make those available to you before you leave today.
Okay.
So it was more informational and wanting to let the community know this was a workshop that was available and open to that particular target market.
okay, beautiful, excellent. Next up, we have subcommittee reports. Community Outreach and Marketing, Commissioners Sandrasina, Michio, and Randolph.
I can start with one for the fundraiser film screening event. We'd made some more progress since our last meeting and had a in-person sit-down Nikki and I did with the folks at the Palm Springs Cultural Center just to ask the questions that we needed to ask that were on our to-do list, and it seems that they would be able to accommodate the event on October 30th that we had proposed to do. They are going to send us, we are waiting for them to send us a rental contract. They would require us to rent the facility. They did offer us a discount on that. Normally the fee would be $1,000 to rent the facility. They offered to take half of that off for us because we are technically not, a nonprofit. We are a city commission. If we were a nonprofit, they might give it to us for free, but since we're not, they can't. So we would have a $500 fee to rent the space, and they would be agreeable to just collect the money and take tickets or the money in at the box office, and then just kind of deduct that first and then give us the balance at the end of that. I have asked them to send us an example of the contract so we can send it to the city staff to have the staff review it and approve it, because if there's some nuance in there that wouldn't be approved by the city, then we would have to rethink the whole thing. So I'm trying to get that quick, so Dale, look out for that. So we can pass that along and hopefully just have the city quickly look it over and make sure it's fine. But otherwise, if it is, then we hope that we can move forward and work with the Palm Springs Cultural Center and the LGBT Center to kind of work on any sort of joint advertising efforts to get the word out that this event would be coming up, and then they would help us spread the word to the community on this opportunity.
Yeah, and the Palm Springs Cultural Center, I mean, they're very cooperative, they're happy to work with us, and they've simplified any efforts that we might have. They'll handle all the ticket processing so that all the money's being collected in one place, their fees deducted, and then it's given to us so that the paper trail is very simple and clean and clear. We do need to have a second meeting with the center. Now I don't know what her title is, but we met, David and I and Ryan met with an assistant. They were very enthusiastic. They were, willing to do whatever marketing they could. But now Sue is back and we need to meet with her. Because they're going to be very important from the marketing advertising. Their outreach is going to be very powerful. If we want to fill the 500 seats, which we do, then we're going to really need to work closely with them. So we will set up a second meeting with her, assuming that we're going to proceed.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that by saying, assuming we get the city to review the facility rental contract and that's okay, we'll meet with the center as well, but then probably for our next formal meeting, which would be in October, we would ask for an agenda item to have some discussion and vote on how we would share the revenue between the commission and whatever the beneficiary is. So we would want to have a discussion. But let's make sure that we get the approvals that we need to actually do the event and then have these sorts of events moving forward, and then we would request that of you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's it. Nikki, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
First off, which one of the Cultural Center theaters? Would it be one of the smaller venues, or would it be the main?
We would aspire to have the main theater, the main.
Sorry.
Oh, he was asking which theater within the Palm Springs Cultural Center we were trying to host it in. We would try to host it in the large one that holds almost 500 people.
Okay.
Yeah. If we determine through some ticket sales or any information in advance that we might not fill it, we can move to a smaller one, or, we can section off some seats and only sit in the center of the big one. So we can, they'll work with us, but we hope to utilize the big one.
And I did have a second one, but it's gone up into the...
Okay. When it comes back down.
When it comes back down, I will resurface.
That's what happens on birthdays.
Not just on birthdays, I wish.
Anything else on marketing? All right, next up, Community Service Awards. I don't have anything to update. Jim, do you have anything? Okay, nothing has happened on that, so there's no update there. Finance Commissioners, updates.
I will redo the budget after we have everything solved about the fundraiser, because we still have plenty of time because, it's gonna be almost a year before we have to have a new one. And if we have income, we gotta decide how much we're gonna split with our partner. So that all needs to be a more known commodity before I have anything more to report on finance.
Okay, excellent.
I have something to bring forward. From the retreat and the discussions about the budget and establishing potential ask requests for an increase of the city budget. This past fiscal year, we had a surplus of $310.86. So of those donations that we had received in the prior year, our expenses did not exceed, so leaving us that 310 surplus. This being the first year of us trying to coordinate private donations, our accounting system isn't quite sophisticated enough to bring that forward. So in looking at this year's budget, that amount did not carry forward. So I have to submit some budget offsetting adjustment to be able to have that brought forward. Typically in general fund accounts, unless it's requested prior and approved by the city manager, those funds do not come forward. Unfortunately, most of our donations we received was of May and June, so it did not hit the system that everyone was able to coordinate with one another. So you can look to have a surplus of additional $310.
Oh, we need a banner.
Yeah.
You haven't received the senior expo report yet.
But it'll be positive to budget. I could say that much. I'll say more in the report, so.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that. Retreat, we don't have any updates on retreat? Nothing retreat?
Only the carryover that we talked about.
Microphone.
You're gonna talk about that
When
on,
am I going to talk about that one?
it's,
It's coming up.
yeah,
then we'll
it's
talk
eight,
about
it's
it now.
8B.
Wait for it.
Okay, student representatives, I see some information has gone out to folks.
Yeah, so we have sent the self-nomination form for our student rep position off to the administrators at Palm Springs High School, and extended the deadline to September 21. And out of curiosity, Dale, have you gotten any? Okay.
None?
So I have asked, I sent a follow-up to those folks, just reminding them that this is out there, and if I invited them to have me or some of us come to the high school and talk to students if needed to kind of drum up some interest or enthusiasm. So if I don't hear back from them again at the end of the week, I'll just call and just kind of check on the process, because we might need to go over there and try to actually meet some folks and explain what we're doing. So, but it's out there, and so we're waiting for applicants. Yeah.
What about the student leaders that we awarded? We recognized at the HRC meetings. Were they all seniors, or?
I don't know for all of them,
Do we
but
still have their contact
the ones that
information?
I've talked with we're graduating seniors, so they're off at four-year universities.
How did we choose those people? I mean, how did we get their names? Just out of curiosity, because I was wondering if there's a way we can
Send it to them.
get to the next level, the juniors that are now seniors,
Sure.
that we could contact and
Yeah.
see if they themselves or know other people that want to represent.
Yep, and I can give you the teacher, the advisor's contact that I talked to. But there was a student advisor who assisted the high school students in coordinating the March rally.
Okay.
And he's who I reached out to help us determine who the core leaders were in the March for Our Lives rallies, both for Palm Springs High School, and then he reached out to associated advisors from Desert Hot Springs. But I can share that with you.
Okay,
So
that'd be great.
You've got
Yeah.
his. The other one I was thinking, in your outreach, did it go to the center? They've
The
got
LGBT center?
They've
No.
got a youth program, and I didn't see it come through to Safe Schools. So maybe you might want to formally send it to Safe Schools.
Okay.
And I can push
Yeah.
it along.
I'd be happy to do that if you can pass along that contact info. I did so to the folks that Dale was able to provide for me, so if you want to expand that, I'm happy to do that. And then I also will probably do it to the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club, because I happen to know her as well, and we spoke about the program recently, so I'll be sending it to her as well.
And it has been posted on the website.
Okay, terrific.
But along those lines, have you had a conversation with Amy? Has Amy helped distribute it to a broader media? Do you know what we've got to do there?
I think in the discussion that we had prior, we were concentrating and centering on just student government and internally within the school district. So it was not a broad solicitation across the community, no.
That raises an interesting question for me. I'm surprised. This is one I would think I would have thought of earlier. Are we only, I know we've already had the discussion and we're defining this program as applicable to the city of Palm Springs. So I think we made that decision, right? We've crossed that bridge. Now here's the second question though. Palm Springs High School is certainly a primary focus for this, but we also have a couple of three, I believe we have a couple of three private high schools in the city. And would they not also, since they're part of the city, potentially be part of this program?
Didn't the,
Have we addressed that? I don't think we've addressed that.
we did, we
It
talked
was?
about it.
Yes, it's
Well-
identified as Palm Springs it is
Speci-
identified as Palm Springs High School.
Specifically.
in our-
Yeah, and I don't have a big problem with that, but I just want us to be aware that if that's the definition we're agreeing to, then it does leave some pockets unaccounted for at those small private high schools.
Right. And we talked about if we wanted to update that or we didn't, and when we talked.
Mhm.
And so I think that at this point, we decided just to keep with Palm Springs, so maybe we could get students this year.
Okay. I think we just might want to.
But that's a good point.
Yeah, well,
to
just keep it in the back of our
consider
heads. I don't think we need to take
future.
urgent action, given where we're trying to go, but, yeah.
And I think that was the concern, that with the school year having started,
Right.
that we wanted to roll it out quickly.
Yeah.
And then assess if there's some fine tuning that we need to do, that we could even broaden it. So if our effort, it doesn't pan out, that we have a large interest from Palm Springs Unified High School, that we may look at other possibilities of allowing the three private and maybe even expand the Cathedral City, but
And-
they are non-voting representatives.
And again, I think that our concern is that we've run now for a while, probably almost a year, without anybody, and it's not been easy. Our team has worked hard, so if they could get it through in just this one school, maybe then we can learn what we need to do.
Build on that.
Okay. And we did have an extended conversation when we were back at the training center about private schools and other students that have residence in Palm Springs. But subsequently, the conversation came up at the retreat about the ordinance, which specifically called out Palm Springs High School, which also excludes our middle school. But the final form, is the final form only for 9th and 10th, 11th graders?
Yeah, we did do the whole range, I believe, 8 through 12.
8 through 12.
So we are looking at middle school. So I think we just leave it with the subcommittee to just keep in the back of the mind that as a commission, we did have the desire to broaden it out to private schools and any student in Palm Springs. And then the subcommittee should bring it back, or feel free to bring it back to the commission at any time for us to address a bigger picture on the outreach.
Yep.
I would just clarify, it was our policies and procedure that identified that it was Palm Springs High School. The municipal ordinance is silent on student representatives whether it's this commission or the Sustainability Commission. So it was our own procedural item that we had identified that.
Excellent, thank you for that. Okay, senior fair update. Commissioner Gross.
Yes, another Human Rights Commission meeting and another name change on the event. It turns out that in October, a couple weeks before we do the senior event, Mizell also is having an event where they're using the word expo. So, yeah. So we made a decision now that the name is Senior Resource Day. And actually, I believe the group working on this actually feels that may be the best name yet. I like it the best, even over Expo, because it really goes to the heart of what the day is about, which is resources. So it is now Senior Resource Day. And so that will be on October 23rd, starting at 9 as planned. Now, there has been a good amount of additional planning completed. I think as we left our last meeting, there was still a bit of a cloud over how to fund this event and what the budget implications were and all the rest of it. The good news is that Mizell is stepping up to cover more ground than initially I was told. So things like the breakfast and some other items, Mizell will pick those up. And I've also been able to work out some arrangements where the publicity costs are going to be picked up. So the end of the day, I won't go through all the details if somebody wants me to. I don't think I need to. But at the end of the day, most of the budgetary issues have been resolved and have found a way to be funded, with the exception of about $200, which I have not raised as an issue based upon our early estimates that we would have that available in our budget. Now, I see that target's moving a little bit, and I take it that if you report, I think we're talking about the same thing when you're reporting a $310, I'll call it surplus. Is that correct? So, yeah. So we still have that there, and now kind of even looking in the banner direction for a minute, a little bit off topic, but even that leaves some room for the banner maybe. So, but in any case, the funding issues have been resolved. And that was the big concern going forward as to whether or not we would have an impasse there. But it looks like we have not, due to the generosity of both Mizell and also we got a very fortunate production bid on production of the brochure that saved about $600 off the original estimate. There's been a number of things, water under the bridge. But all of that water's been flowing towards reducing what we thought might be a $1,000 to $1,200 shortfall. So we're down to the $200. And at this point, at least the planning committee which is basically me and Mizell, don't see any reason at this point for that to be a roadblock. Mm-hmm. But built in there is this kind of assumption. I just want to be clear here, that we would have $200 based on our budget this year.
May I just ask a question of how is the Human Rights Commission being billed in this event? Are we co-producer? Are we
co-sponsor?
Co-sponsor. That's exactly, so equal billing with the Mizell Center. Well, with that being the case, then if it's permissible, if that $300 is not gone, then I would recommend that we give the $200 that they need. I think this is an important segment of the community, and we use the $100 to alter the orange banner, the table thing that we have, to have it resewn or whatever needs to be done so it can be on a pole and carried in the parade.
And I think previously we have discussed that we were going to allocate $200. Do we need any formal activity on that?
It's not necessary. I mean, typically your budget, you've just categories.
Yeah.
I would ask for clarification of that 200. What is it allocated to?
Printing.
Yeah, what particular line item?
Yes.
Yes, and I don't have that information right now, but we'll get that clarified.
Because in your last month's meeting, the discussion was that the need for an interpreter.
Yes.
And will we have that service available, or should we designate our contribution towards that?
Let me go back and check my notes on that, and that's Ron, you remember you were part of that conversation as well. We will have an interpreter, yes, but whether or not that is coming direct, or would be part of what we as the commission fund directly, or I have to check my notes, which I don't have right at the moment on that particular point.
Since we're not putting this forth as a motion, can we ask the rest of the commission and commissioners if they think this is the appropriate way to allocate the $300 surplus?
Sure, we can,
$10.
so, since we're on the resource fair, or resource day, sorry. If we can, we have discussed $200 being focused and set aside for that. So why don't we entertain a motion to approve the $200 for the senior resource fair, which the Human Rights Commission went to Mizell and asked Mizell to go put it on with us. So I think we should give a lot of applause to Mizell because they're underwriting significant dollars.
Yeah.
They're underwriting the continental breakfast, they're underwriting the auditorium rental, they're assisting with some other in-house printing activity, and they're gonna be assisting with marketing. So significant dollars Mizell has been able to come back and assist us with. So props to Jim for being able to do that, and thank you to the Mizell and Jenny Fote for making that possible. So why don't we, if we can, just entertain a motion to allocate $200 to the Senior Resource Day.
I motion that we allocate $200 to the Senior Resource Day, and the remaining $110 we used to either convert our current table banner or buy a new banner for parades.
If needed.
If
Because
needed.
Dale. Okay, second on the
Second that.
motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? We're good, motion carries.
But-
Excellent.
But to go back to the banner, do we still have the poles?
No.
I thought the poles were floating around somewhere.
All gone.
So Dale's gonna,
Just check.
Dale's gonna check, and
I
once
just wanted to see if we had poles, I'd be a little bit better.
we will get that information. So Jim, excellent work getting to this point. And in my notes, the feedback from Mizell was that the clients that are, the Mizell clients coming in that they regularly see and who they would expect to be participating in this event are not deaf, but hard of hearing. So they don't, as a normal course of operation, they have not identified a need to have ASL or interpretation services for their ongoing programs. So it's, if we hear that, you know, so it went back to.
You're right. Thank you. Yeah, you're clarifying. Because that was what we came. Oh, thank you, Ron. Yeah, for putting that clarification out there, because we did go through that discussion about whether or not we absolutely had to hard fund the interpreter or not, and we did leave it basically as Ron's describing, that if we find demand is coming up, then we will address that.
But the only issue there is that typically there's a 48-hour period that is given if there is a request for interpretation. And particularly because that the city is a co-sponsor of the event, I mean, should we at least get some estimates of what, if there is a request, even if there's one individual that requests the service?
Yeah, the amount we had in the budget, and I still think if we're going to put it back as a hard expense in the budget, one that we were committed to, was 3 hours at 50, 450. That's the dollar amount involved. And that is for ASL interpretation, that's not for closed captioning.
So the commission has approved $200. Jim, you're going to move forward with that. If you discover other budget challenges and issues, you'll bring it back to the commission to address, okay?
Yes, I will. And just a couple other things then, unrelated to the budget, but related to the event. The brochure is in final stages of design and text preparation. It should probably be going to reproduction in the next week to 10 days. So, of course, I'll be making sure you all get that. In fact, Dale, I'll probably shoot you an electronic version of it. No sense in, absorbing the paper on that. Okay. I think that's just about it, October 23rd. And of course, for all of us as commissioners, I'm hoping as many of us as possible are there on the 23rd at 9.
Beautiful. And the update on my side, there was a conference this last weekend with gay and lesbian, bi, trans journalists that in town, and they had a session on aging and gay and grain was the title of the session. So Councilmember Middleton was the moderator for that panel, and she had invited me to attend. So it was an interesting panel which brought to light the same core topics that are floating in all of our conversations and the findings that we've had so far of the top 4 or 5 issues in the city of Palm Springs affecting our aging community is isolationism and oh my God, I'm aging myself, and isolationism, transportation. So isolation. So that is a core issue raising, but to that. A big discussion on the impact that Alzheimer's is going to have, not only on the entire community, but specifically the LGBT community and the marginalized communities that exist in Palm Springs. So good information, and that will be added to our final report that we bring forward for the commission and then for presentation to City Council. Okay, Jim, anything else on that?
Well, actually, based on what you just based on what you just said, I was going to put, I'm getting good at this now, finally. I was going to put this announcement, so I think it ties directly to what you just stated, Ron. I asked Dale to circulate this afternoon, so it may be in a lot of your inboxes as an email attachment. I found a really illuminating video of Congressman Ruiz's testimony in D.C. a 3 days ago on issues confronting seniors in general in the U.S., and brought to me a couple of issues that I had not heard of before. An example being, and I encourage you, it's about 5 minutes, I think, so it's not a long thing, so it's 5 minutes. But for instance, definitions of what elder abuse are, and the fact that, according to the testimony, easily 70 to 80%, that's me editing a little bit there, but that's how I heard the testimony, 70 to 80% of the needs don't fall within the definitions right now, at least of senior abuse is generally recognized by federal agencies. Found that very interesting. And so that I found some interesting learning there, and that's why I asked for it to circulate. So I encourage you to take a look.
Okay, excellent. So now reports on external committee outreach. Desert Highlands Gateway Association.
Tomorrow is their meeting, and I will be present at that meeting. So anyone who likes to join me, speak call.
The only thing I was going to say or ask, and we can chat after the meeting, but if the 3 of us could get together and talk about how the 3 of us can start to regularly circulate and go to those meetings, that would be great.
Yeah, and those meetings are every other month.
Every other month?
Yes,
Oh,
every
oh.
other Tuesday.
Okay.
At 7 o'clock. I'm also helping them to get a representative from the RAP Foundation to open us 401c3 and other resources for them to move forward with their programs.
Okay.
I'm sorry, could you clarify every other Tuesday or every other month?
Every other Tuesday, every other month.
Every other month?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, update Housing and Homelessness Task Force. Commissioner Andrade.
No updates on that, but I did get an invitation today to a presentation by the BIA. I guess the Building Industry Association is going to do an update on affordable housing and in the county. So I'm going to go to that, and I'll report back if anything's relative.
I'm sorry, is it the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs?
No.
It's the Building Association. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. And
Sorry.
would you share when that meeting is?
It's the 26th, actually, of September. And let me see, I think I have September 26th, Affordable Housing and Homelessness from the Building Industry Association, Riverside. And it's out in Palm Desert, is where the presentation is, from 11 to 1:30.
Can you forward that to us?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, please do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, no updates from the Main Street Palm Springs meeting this month. 1 PS, Commissioner Gross.
No, I don't believe no, I don't believe there's anything that's moving through 1PS right now that really touches on any of our Human Rights Commission activities at this point.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. The Police Outreach Committee was dark, so our next meeting is next Thursday, so we'll have an update for you at the October meeting. Commissioner Gross, newly appointed to the Mediation Services Subcommittee.
And I'm a subcommittee of one at this point, am I not? Oh my God. I can make some jokes about that. Well, I'll just be plain and simple, no report.
Beautiful. Any topical newsworthy items that any commissioner would like to share at this time?
Yes. Couple of three. Let's see, I just mentioned Dr. Ruiz, so I don't need to go through that again. But Ron, you and I know that Pride Awards are coming up here at the end of the month. Help me out on date, Ron.
26 September.
26. And at this award ceremony, not only are there a number of distinguished members of the community, and of course, my Doug and Woody, I call them my Doug and Woody because I was one of their earliest students. They were my 7th grade teachers in junior high, if you can believe that, are being honored for ongoing service to the community. It'll be a big deal for them. I'm really looking forward to that. Obviously, I have a lot of personal invest in that. But aside from that, kind of on the city thing, Denise Goolsby's getting a nice recognition. And for those of us on 1PS in particular, Denise is our J, if you want to think of it that way. She is our staff support and is really invaluable for us there. So I'm very pleased for her. And her name has now also come up twice in this meeting, but our own Lisa Middleton is also receiving a significant award for her involvement. So it will be a delightful event. And I hope, Ron, you'll probably know the website better than I will, but I hope you'll visit the website and consider being a part of the event. It'll be at the Hilton.
Yes, pspride.org. And Lisa Middleton is the Advocate of the Year. First time it's going to an individual. It's normally given to organizations. So quite an honor for Lisa. And the other thing of significance, and thank you for bringing it up, Jim, 5 women out of the 7 honorees are being recognized. Palm Springs residents are being recognized this year. So it's a significant opportunity to raise awareness for the contributions that women are making in the community across the board, and not just LGBT, so our allies and the LGBT community. So thank you for that. Any other topical newsworthy items? All right, we go on to items 8A. Tabletop reporting and briefing. All right. Drum roll, please, Commissioner Morgan.
This was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but for those of you who don't know, Table Talk was our effort to not only reach out to the community, but also to promote what we're doing with Human Rights Commission. And we had a simple questionnaire. Most of you have already seen this. Actually, it was made very pretty by our team here at City Hall. But just a lot of different questions on here that we had people answer in various states. Jim and I actually, on the Black History Parade, we collected the most out of every Table Talk date that was set, almost 60 altogether. You did.
I didn't know that.
I think you did 30 and I did like 25, but it was a great time to be out and talking to people. It was a very captive audience and they were interested, and sometimes when we went to different locations, I think people were a little scared to speak to us. They didn't know what we were doing there. I think in particular, maybe like the immigrant community was a little bit nervous. But anyway, so the statistics are very unscientific, as I've mentioned all along. You can see on the second page, there's a list of all the different questions. I try to put that in a nice little format. I think moving forward, if we were to ever decide to do this again, maybe we, I don't want to say tailor the answers, but maybe if we gave a little bit more focus instead of just having free, open-ended answers, because you can see there was quite a lot that people replied to. In order to squeeze it on one page, front and back, you can see I combined question 2 and 3 because it was pretty similar. I myself think that that's maybe not necessarily something we should be asking, because, I mean, it is what it is, but we should be asking them more questions about what's affecting them or their friends or their neighbors. But you can see there's some pretty great responses. I mean, someone just asked me today, despondent. I mean, that's what a person described the group that they belong to. A lot of people, as you can see from the responses, there was about 120 altogether, I think. But if you look at question number 1, do you identify with a specific group of people who live in Palm Springs? Not a lot of people answered. A lot of people said, oh, I'm part of every group. And I think in part people didn't want to pigeonhole themselves, maybe. I think sometimes people didn't want to necessarily answer truthfully. They were embarrassed. But some people were very honest. And I don't know if you have any feedback, if you wanted to digest this very important document. I don't think it's necessarily something that we need to take to City Council, but I think this is a very big learning experience. I think if we do move forward, I would love to actually see maybe one date a month, so it's not so haphazard, and we choose a location and we try to get as many diverse locations as possible. There are some areas that we did not reach because of just time and effort and everyone's schedule, but I think if we did literally one date a month, different area, I'd love to get to Demuth Park, I'd love to get to the LGBT Center, I'd love to get to just different neighborhoods. You know, walking around, like Jilska and I, for the very first table talk that we did, it was at a primarily Spanish-speaking grocery store, and there were a lot of people that didn't want to talk to us. We had the proposed banner, and it looked very official. I don't know, people were scared of that, what have you. So I think if you look at the replies, the biggest concern, homelessness. That was pretty big. A lot of people thought about that throughout the entire one-page questionnaire. So, any questions?
Wonderful.
A comment. So I just have to commend you all for your efforts. I think that it was that part that we had to get out there so that people could actually talk to the Human Rights Commission instead of just as they're walking up the street in a parade, wave at them. And so I would like to have us keep this idea out there and try to figure out how to look at keeping with this type of a forum out there, because I think that even though you have the report and it appears to be big, it gives you info that we didn't have, and I think that every first effort helps us to grow, to figure out where to go from there. So I just think that it was a really great thing, and I think that if you kept getting out there, if there's a group, it doesn't always have to be the same people, but perhaps those people who weren't sure at first, the word will spread from the one person who actually did have who walked up and approached and then took it back to their people. So.
I'd just like to say I think this was a really great idea, and we were able to actually go out there and implement it, and it seems like it's, you know, part of our outreach, and I hope that, and perhaps it's on us that are on the marketing subcommittee, to continue on. And, you know, the idea of fundraising perhaps some money could be dedicated in the future to getting someone professional to help us define the questions to get better answers and better results, to guide us as a city. Because David and I just sort of made these questions up. And we can see now, gee, maybe we're not professionals in that way. But we did make the effort, and a lot of people went out and did the table talks. And I just think it's the right thing to do about outreach. We're out there talking to people who live in Palm Springs. So good on everybody.
I mean, this is the community outreach and marketing. So this really does. It's the outreach and it's promoting what we're doing. I think, I really like to go back and emphasize, I always say that LGBT rights, we have all the rights here, we're powerful, we have a voice at the table, but the very first table talk that we did, it really blew me away. There was a Latina, and she was a lesbian, and she walked up and we were talking, going through the whole entire list, and the very last number 4, it says, do you agree or disagree? Is there a problem with LGBT rights? And I started shaking my head no. And she said, yes. And she's the individual, and I've talked about her before. She said, I'm a Latina, I'm a lesbian. My kids are just tormented in the neighborhood. My car is vandalized, my house was vandalized. It's a problem. And I don't see that. And I think there's so many different kind of scenarios that we probably are missing. And I think getting out to that grocery store that maybe we've never been to before in different locations, it helps bring us out of our comfort zone, and hopefully we're going to hear a different voice and find something that we really need to take care of.
And I think too, while we're trying to figure out how to schedule so that people will come, if they can't come, that we can get out there to them, even if it's only 3 or 4 times a year. Would again just help to get the word out about the group.
One thing I've noted on outreach is this has become a topic of interest, not only just to our initial survey efforts and all the rest of that, but it's become a significant discussion topic as well as the whole process for district voting and others have come up. And goodbye. So I've had a couple of discussions with Christy, who seems to have really realized and taken hold of this issue, which I appreciate, that outreach overall is a significant thing. And I think she herself is very interested in the resources that at the moment are not terribly available for us to do as much as we would like. So I think as we look at that from our side, certainly we could tap in either directly with Christy or through people she would point to who may be really working that issue. That's the other element of that. It's just dawning on me that has come up in that discussion has been related to the funding processes around, Terry, well, what's the name of Path of Life, yeah. And the notation, and it was in a public forum, and so I think it's pretty clear. A lot of progress has been made there, but one of the things that didn't occur, and I think if there was a do-over, is what I heard would have been to put more resource into the outreach and the communication and the marketing related there, because there are a lot of issues in the city people just kind of toss around with no background or whatever, but particularly Path of Life has been subject to a lot of, well, a zillion interpretations of what it means, what the relation is to this, and blah, 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 blah. If the outreach process had happened as part of that program, it probably would have been minimized. So I think not only is it very valid for us, but I think there's now a head of steam to really address that more substantially across a number of city initiatives, and we should kind of track that and be a part of it.
Yeah. I feel that we need, just doing these table topics with David, not only did we meet interesting people who were also not aware of us as a Human Rights Commission, we actually reached out to different issues in our community. We are so disconnected when it comes to services, like Path of Life Ministries. they come out of San Bernardino, and trying to call up and try to put a homeless person in a shelter. It is the hardest thing to do. It takes at least 2 weeks to process those things. So these things, we need to get this conversation going, and we need to make change here and help these people. If you're blind, you cannot get into any of the shelters here. So these, we have to address these issues, and this is one way we were able to get ourselves out there.
One last thing that I'd like to say, during one of our marketing and outreach committees, Nikki actually said, are we trying to reach the majority of people, or are we trying to reach the diverse community? And I'd like to think through this and everything that we do, we're trying to reach as many people as possible, not just one big group.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments? I will close this section on, thank you to Commissioner Morgan for really being the fire that lit the idea and all the work that went into it. I know everybody who did participate certainly took a lot of time and effort and energy, and maybe not so much, the findings may not be as important to today as what has been mentioned, and that is the outreach. And one of the conversations that we've had around the table all year has been awareness in the community. So I think if nothing else, not only did we learn some issues that are important to the community, but that outreach and the impact that those conversations have had is, we just can't measure that. So thank you for taking that on. I think, and then we will leave it to the subcommittee to make this part of whatever your annual plan is going forward, okay? All right, next up, item 8B, October planning time. And we were carrying forward the conversation from the retreat.
We were. In August, when we were all together attempting to map out this year, there was concern that perhaps we didn't have it mapped out real tight. And there was some discussion on possibly getting together for an hour and a half in October to look at if there are things that we want to schedule and work on this year that we haven't talked about and put onto our agendas. So I'm just putting it out to the group. Do we think that we have to have additional time, or do we think that we have an idea, and then for the monthly item number 9s where we add to our agendas? Is that sufficient? We have to decide what we want to do today. If we want to come together again and plan for an additional hour and a half, or if we're going to add our items on. It sounded a bit like people wanted additional time in August when we talked.
Yeah, I think we did, and also the takeaway I thought we had, and we partially addressed it earlier in the meeting, was to potentially use that time to deal with the governance documents, the city ordinance, which we've been looking at, and also on the, I'll just call them the bylaws. It's got another title on it. What's the current?
Rules. The rules.
The rules, yes, which I think of bylaws.
I kind of understood it to be the planning piece, that there was concern that we didn't have a good firm plan.
Well, but let me just finish a little bit more on
Sure.
that. Yeah, because actually where I'm coming from is really very much tied to that, because I think part of that discussion, in order to have that discussion, we also have to have, so, what is the vision in the broadest sense of the word, and how does it work or how does it not work against the background documents, and what is the kind of process for bringing those two together in the best possible way. And so in my head anyway, that's kind of my takeaway, and even the comments I've submitted, I've even kind of framed that way.
And I do think that that could take longer than an hour and a half,
Yeah.
which is how come when we were talking in August, I said, maybe we should find ourselves coming together an hour and a half in August, and maybe additionally after that, just to be sure that we're doing what it is that our bylaws and that our group feels should be the work.
I would
So-
agree, we need more focused times to do things, like looking at the rules and procedure here. Even in the subcommittees that are supposed to be ongoing, we've got gaping holes. We're missing some of them. And that should not be if we're gonna follow the rules and procedures. So that's one meeting. What I don't wanna do is have a meeting where we spend an inordinate amount of time on one topic, and it just goes on and on and on, and we're just sort of going up dead-end roads. If we have a very good plan, and then the same thing with planning, what else do we want to accomplish? I mean, I think those kinds of meetings have to be had, and they need to be hyper-focused.
So, in the past, they would have a whole day retreat on a Saturday. I think what we did last time we came together in August is maybe 2.5 to a 3 hour. I'd have to go back and look how much time we did for actual planning. But,
There's
so
an
that
activity
would
budget.
allow it, but we also held our meeting. So we have time if we're keeping to what it says in our books, if it even, I have to go back and look at that we haven't tapped into a full day. So, and that's how come I said, that sounds right there, like that might be an hour and a half. Nikki, I think exactly that if we're going to come together and we decide it's going to be once or it's going to be twice, that we probably have to have a plan of what that focus will be so that we don't end up with this big global thing that we can't even get through because it would be, in addition to, it would be extra time when we're together. So I don't know how quite to go from there. Do we do we do a motion? Do we decide?
Well, I think, Nikki, you look like you're trying to make a
Well,
comment.
I was gonna say the same things.
Yeah.
Do we vote? Let's do it.
So I think shouldn't we go ahead and just schedule, what about scheduling an hour study session before our meeting next week or next month? So we can specifically address the structure question and the committee, the 7 committees or 8 committees that we want to move forward with. And then November, we can have another hour study session that can be very focused on a very specific topic. But what is the focus for 2019? And that conversation actually may get delayed until January because we've got new commissioners coming on in, hopefully January 1. So, our terms expire in December. So we may look at maybe the focus for 2019 would really come out of a study session in January or February versus us deciding in November what a new commission's going to do in 2019.
I like that a lot, Ron, and I think, that to me, that's a perfect way to welcome new commission members on, is to have them involved in that discussion rather than just have it, a couple months ago, we made all these decisions, now welcome to you, and that kind of thing. It's kind of, what the hell is that?
Well, what we can do in the meantime
Yeah.
is we can at least have the 1 hour very focused meeting to finish the 7 or 8 committees and get that updated as, so we've got working orders going forward. So we'll do that for the
October, but we
October.
need to figure out what time we're going to start.
And that will come, that's gonna come on the next one. So, but if we just schedule, is everybody okay to having an hour focused on that? Okay, so once we finish our item 8C, then we'll discover what that schedule may look like. Okay, are we done with 8B?
I
We
think
good?
we are, we good?
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Dale, item 8C, update.
The task that you allocated for me to come back with, there is latitude upon the commission to schedule their own time. There is no consistency in terms of other commissions and boards. So there is some latitude. Other item that you had asked about the possibility of rotating your meetings or off-site in the community. Because you're televised or recorded, it would be difficult staffing-wise to do something like that. So, you could do a special event type of thing, a forum that would not be recorded, would not be taped, and reach out to certain communities within the neighborhoods or community centers alike. The issue with the time, it is anticipated that the council will be considering times that are more convenient for the public of the evening, but there is no certainty as far as standardizing that time. So right now, you have that latitude. You've already, for the past 4 months, allocated a pilot program, and we've been starting at 5. If you go back to your regular schedule, it would be at 3. So you have some flexibility on how you wish to structure it. I would suggest that you're talking about a study session or a special meeting to look at some planning. That may not need to be televised, and then you would have your regular meeting that would be. So you've got some discretion on how you wish to proceed.
Okay, so I think coming out of the discussion from the last meeting was suggestions from Councilmember Holstage, 5:30, 6 o'clock could be better times. We had talked about at least 5:30, so there's the leeway, the commission can go 5:30 or 6 o'clock and there's no impact. So with that information, we can now decide, we've tried 5 o'clock. The feedback that we got from Councilmember Holstage's briefing from what she has heard within the community is later times could be challenging for people working in industry, the travel industry. So is it 5:30, 6 o'clock a more ideal start time? What would we like to do? We've left it open that we would change it, and we have been pioneering the change in time with with the test that we did. So I open it to the table. Do we want to go to 5:30 or 6 o'clock and try that for?
I certainly think going back to 3 is not a good idea. I mean, then we're for sure Xing out a lot of people's opportunity to come if they wish to speak to the commission. So I'm opposed to going back to 3, whether we go later.
I would like 5 o'clock, 5 to 6, and if we have study time, we do it before, between 4 and 5, because we can spend all our time here too,
Yeah. Well, I tend to favor 6, and the reason I do is, and it's not scientific, but general sense I have is for folks who are working full-time jobs, generally it's in the 5 to 5:30 range they're getting off work. So to try and make a 5 or 5:30 meeting, there just isn't that little piece of time. So 6 allows people who are kind of coming off work to get here. I think it also, the other thing, and again, this is not scientific, it's just my impressions and observations, is for folks that may have the opposite problem, which is that they may have families where they feel some evening obligations and all the rest of that, is that going at 6 o'clock, we don't go that late into that window for them. Assuming our regular meeting time's an hour and a half, that's still getting people out of here by 7:30 if they have evening obligations for family or otherwise. So to me, 6 kind of feels like that might be the happiest medium we may get to, with study sessions being before 6 if they are needed.
What
I
about
think
our
we're
students?
guessing.
What about our students? What about our students?
Any other feedback on 5:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30, or 6?
Well, I think that we've tried 5 o'clock, and our audience looks about the same as it did at 3 o'clock. And so I would just be curious at seeing what it looks like at 6 o'clock.
Mr. Dale, how are these meetings promoted other than the website? Is there any kind of push from the people who do the marketing and PR through City Hall to promote the various commissions and the times that they meet? I mean, I understand it must get a little stale, but is there any kind of a strategy that they're using to actually promote so we get more public attendance or feedback?
Oftentimes, particularly with council, there is an outlook that is published in terms of key issues or issues of interest that may have a broader desire in the community. Not so much for the boards and commission. Typically, it's regular agenda and special items, and if there's an interest in a particular topic, then that brings people forward. I think what I'm hearing, though, that you're trying to address a greater participation of the residents, the citizens. If you know, in council agenda, they have a public comment period specifically on agenda items of the meeting. And then later of the meeting, it may be a much broader opportunity for someone to bring their perspective that could be of interest to the commission. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to get everyone every time. I see often it's not so much the time, it's the topics. It's what brings people out. You often get a greater flow of people when it's something of controversy or something that they have personal interest, personal gain. So I don't know if you want to look at issues that you've brought forward in the tabletops that may draw people, and it may be something that we have to do some outreach to make them aware that this topic is coming up. But it like Commissioner Randolph said, I think it's a guessing game, and it'll vary. So oftentimes too, I mean, we have hour and a half, 2-hour meeting. We're dealing with issues that the subcommittee should already have come to conclusions. We're doing committee work in your commission meeting. Mm-hmm. And you need to scrub that down so that your meetings are more precise, more manageable, more timely. People are not wanting to have the dinner hour and listening to us decide on the budget of a certain event.
Well, we've discussed,
what a dig.
We've discussed the banner quite a lot. I mean, that's a hot topic here.
It's been a
But
banner year for us.
Ron, so when we do the host, we host a speaker. I'm just thinking of ways that we might be able to build attendance. So when we have speakers and what they're going to be talking about, are we able to promote that through the publicity machine through City Hall? I mean, because nobody knows if they look at the website, they'll see. I mean, I don't even know if that's posted, or it would be on the agenda. But who's actually reading the agendas, right? So if there's a way that we could promote, the speakers, if they're tailored to different topics and people that would be interested, maybe they don't come to every meeting, but if they, like the gentleman that was here through the county of Riverside that talked about how 50%, I think the figure was 50% of people at 75 are broke. I mean, that's something that maybe people want to hear about. Not that we're trying to inflame and go crazy or anything, but it's just certain subjects that are on our agenda that we can promote and get more attendance.
I think for us, it's going to be something that we will have to self-initiate, and we will have to be persistent and following through that it is disseminated. To just anticipate that it's going to be done by itself, there's so many other things, so.
Okay, so that brings me back, let me circle back to social media. Are we able to figure out if we can, because I've heard from other boards and commissions that it's kind of iffy if they can actually have social media accounts for a specific board or commission. Because that would be a great way to post up a flyer of something that's happening and start building, you know, people that are interested in Human Rights Commission and what we do. It would be a great way to reach the public. No? Okay.
No, so I just 3 minutes ago, Dale shared with us that we do a lot of subcommittee work at the commission table. So what I would ask is the marketing subcommittee, have the meeting with Amy, have the meeting with this, you determine what you want to do. The subcommittee can determine what you want to do for this commission. Bring it to us and you tell us what we're doing. And we've asked this question in social media so many times, I don't even know the answer. And I've been around the rodeo for a while. So I invite the subcommittee to do the homework, ask those questions to the right people. Dale can point us into what is the right people. And then at our next meeting, or November or December, you come and you tell us, subcommittee, that this is what our marketing program will be for 2019, and it's brought forward for us to vote and approve. And we don't have to get into a debate or an issue or conversation on the logistics. We're counting on you to tell us how we're going to do that outreach. What's our marketing plan going to look like? So that's what we task, and that's the same for all of our, I'm using marketing as an example, but that's the same for all of our subcommittees, is, we're tasked with being able to do that, make those decisions.
I couldn't agree with you more. And if I can bring it back around to the time of our meeting.
Yes.
I used to have a saying about what's everyone's favorite radio station. It's WIFM. What's in it for me? No one wants to come to the meeting and sit around and listen to us talk. So again, it goes back to the outreach. If we want to reach out to the community on an important topic, then we create a forum or a speaker program or something of that nature and take it out there. Then we'll have a big audience and we can address a specific human rights topic. But to focus on what time should we have our meeting so our room is full, that's the wrong way to think about it, if you ask me. So I don't care what time we have the meeting, but everybody put in your 2 cents.
So we've heard 5 o'clock, we've heard 6 o'clock. I think, why don't we go with a happy medium for the next 4 months and try 5:30?
Very good, I was gonna say.
Are we okay with trying 5:30?
Yeah.
And no harm, no foul. We try 30 minutes later, and at the end of 4 months, if it's still our fourth quarter, what do we want to do? October, November, December? We're supposed to go, this is the last 5 o'clock, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So do we want to go to end of the year or do 4 months, which takes us to January at a 5:30?
End of the year.
End of the year?
Yeah.
So December 30, the December meeting will go at 5:30. We'll reevaluate in December and determine, do we try 6 o'clock at that point?
Well, and I'd even, also, since we'll be seating new commission members in January, maybe that decision's also best time then.
Yep, we can.
Given we'll have new commissioners who may or may not have strong views here.
Sweet. So is there consensus that we're going to go with 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're going to go with 5:30. Dale, if you can push that forward, we'd appreciate it.
And for October, can we agree we'll meet an hour before?
4:30?
Yeah.
For the study session.
So
Yeah.
For the
4:30,
study
4:30 study session, which isn't broadcast. And we can, single topic of conversation at that meeting is the rules and guidelines, or rules and procedures, committee structure.
Committee.
Okay, beautiful. Item 9, agenda items for our next meeting. Any agenda items that we want to bring forward?
Ryan?
Um,
The contract.
I had the one, it
Yeah.
was the contract.
Right.
And then also you wanted some guidance on film proceeds sharing.
We
Right.
need to vote on that.
Yeah, and Commissioner Ranoff and I will make a proposal essentially ask the commission to discuss it.
I'm not certain that we need the contract on the agenda. I mean, it was the review by
Yeah.
the city attorney. Or
Right.
You've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The feedback we got from the cultural center was, it's a standard contract. The only thing we need to be concerned about is that they will take $500 out of the ticket sales. And, you know, they even said they had insurance, that they'd
Yeah.
cover everything.
Yeah.
So I don't anticipate there's gonna be a problem. We're just, you know, making double sure. We don't wanna get into promoting this and then the city attorney says, well, line 4, I'm married to an attorney. I know how that can go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just having the topic of the.
I'm discussing the proceeds, basically. Yeah.
But is the right time to discuss that when you know you have proceeds, or just a week or 2 weeks in front of the event?
I think if we're gonna have conversations with the center and ask them to be our partner,
Yeah.
they need to know up front. Yeah, you're gonna get X amount of the proceeds, whatever that is.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we're all going into it thinking, you know, we're gonna max this event out. Not
Okay.
only do we have
Yeah.
the
No,
film and the 500
I
seats.
understand it now, so I
Okay.
just wasn't understanding
Yeah.
what our focus was gonna be. So the subcommittee will come to the commission with
Yeah.
a recommendation
Yeah.
at the next meeting
Yeah.
on what you want that to be.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So the contract doesn't need to be on.
No,
No, because we're gonna try to review that before this next meeting.
And the other possible item could very well be the tobacco retail permit.
yes, so that's what I have down here.
Yeah.
Do we have a point person who wants to take tobacco on? 'Cause
I'll do it.
okay, so Commissioner Randolph is going to be the point on the tobacco subcommittee. Or we have to form a subcommittee at the next meeting, or are we able to?
No, I don't think you need a subcommittee, do you?
Well, somebody's got to, her job is to be addressing the the requests that we've had coming forward on ordinances. So someone's going to have to do some legwork on that.
And I work with Dale to figure out what needs to be done. I'll do whatever's necessary.
Well,
Isn't it just ad hoc? I mean,
yeah, it would be ad
Yeah.
hoc, yeah.
right.
But I think it would, there's 2 citizens have shared some direction with us. I would contact them
Right.
and figure out, then what's the next step? Who's the liaison at city council who's carrying this project forward? It's contacting that person to then say, okay, how can the commission have a role to provide support in this process? And then
Was
you
it
can.
Councilman Coors?
I don't know. Do you know?
It seems to be Coors and Hostage.
Oh. Okay. Tobacco, so that was the ones I got. Anything else for agenda for the next meeting?
Just one general comment related broadly to this whole issue of education and programming and all the rest of it, but I think it kind of ties in here. I'm trying to, I cannot locate it right now, and I'll find it when I get home and I'll send it around. But I'm aware that in mid-October, there's a relatively large commercial event coming into town that's going to have something in the neighborhood of almost 200 topic sessions, about half of which, when I looked at them, going, my God, these are all very relevant to our commission work. And also kind of not only just for us, but also would tie to some of the comments we just offered about how important it is to improve our outreach and help educate the community to what issues are there. For instance, the person I'm familiar with who I think does the best job in the broadest sense in the dialogue across the country, she's everywhere all across the country, on, I'll call it buried racism or unconscious racism. Is going to be doing a major presentation there and would be so relevant, certainly for us as commission members, but I think also of interest to a lot of folks just in broadening their understanding of these issues.
What's the agenda item though, Jim?
What
You
is
want to
the-
add it as an agenda item?
Oh, no, I'm just passing that as a general kind of connecting point to I didn't pick up on it earlier, but to that point where we brought up the fact in our broad role, in terms of the ordinance, but also just in terms of our outreach as a commission, how important it is to be doing more for things that attract the general population. Ideally, to me, that's way beyond our scope of being able to put off right now. But I think that's kind of a model or something that represents something we might want to aspire to.
Okay.
And kind of growing on that. The other reason it's very interesting is they're going to charge good money for that. And it's not outrageous. I think it's like $250 a day or something. But at the same time, there is a financial component to that as well. So for now, I'm just putting it up there as a general marker. I will send Dale, find it wherever it is, and send around just for general information for people to cogitate and to think in terms of outreach.
Okay. So no further agenda items on the agenda. We move into item 10, announcements. Any announcements before we close today's meeting, starting at this end of the table?
A question?
Sure.
Okay. I'd like to go back to the banner for just a sec. Can that be a donated item? I mean, could someone
Sure.
approach a printer and ask for a donation of a banner, or does it have to be printed through a city vetted organization, or what?
Typically, we would not solicitate a donation directly from a vendor because I think this had been our second attempt at having a banner. And if there's a need to replace it, it would be best that we just procure it ourselves.
Pay for it?
Yes.
Okay.
But if somebody wanted to donate funds to the commission earmarked for
A
banner
banner.
costs, then a donation could be accepted.
Does anyone have any idea, ballpark, what a banner costs?
$3 to $6 a foot.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
That's a ballpark.
Yeah.
We want better polls. We want better polls.
I'll add that to my assignment.
Okay. Coming around the table, announcements.
No announcement.
No.
I've already announced off and on. I'm done.
Yeah, nothing.
And I'm going to talk about.
The Chavez Day,
Yes. So
Tribe celebration.
So we were going to talk about the Cesar Chavez Day. We had put it on or suggested it be on the agenda at the last meeting for this meeting, and also an update on California Native American Day. The Cesar Chavez Day, it's just premature to have the conversation now, so maybe we will have more information that we could talk about it at next month's meeting, so maybe we do add it back on the agenda, and then I'll follow up with Dale if it's still premature at that point. And then the California Native American Day, the tribe actually will be at council at the I believe it's going to be the next council meeting, and share information about the month of November when we celebrate Native American Day in Palm Springs, or the tribe celebrates it in Palm Springs. And there's activities that happen, and we'll send that flyer around when we've got it, so the whole commission is aware of it. But the resolution that we had endorsed and sent forward was just modified to include the two sentences about the events happening in November. So that will be formally adopted at the council meeting coming up, the next council meeting, I believe. And race relations was the other topic that we had on the agenda. Again, premature because the police subcommittee hasn't gotten to the point that that's been adopted as a formal item. So once they adopt it as a formal item, then it can be something that the commission can discuss whether or not we want to pick up, have a level of involvement on that, okay? And last item for me on announcements is if everybody, and I'll send a reminder or just a little bullet points on the 3 or 4 points to cover, but if everybody can send back to Dale in the next 2 or 3 weeks just a short report summarizing your involvement and activity with the commission from July 1 to, or last year, from last year's commission service on the commission. I'll take that and I'll put it into the annual report that will get submitted to council. So share with me your involvement from your subcommittees and just commission work in general, and then I will include that into the report that will be submitted on behalf of the commission.
And last year means last fiscal year.
Yes.
So we're reflecting on July of 2017 to June 30th, 2018.
Yeah.
Right?
So you can extend it to July and August if you want to, of this summer. But, so last June to this July, just activity that you've been involved in with the commission. And I'll send some bullet points so everybody can just be reminded of just some general ideas of things you might want to be pointing out, okay? Any other announcements? So we're good to go. It's 6:50. The commission will adjourn. Staff is okay? So the commission will adjourn to a adjourned regular meeting Monday, October 8, 2018 at 3 p.m. in the large conference room.
5:30.
See, I was a test. I was making sure y'all were paying attention. So we'll have a study session at 4:30 and a regular meeting scheduled at 5:30 in the large conference room at City Hall. We're adjourned. Thank you all.